Thank you. Thank you, Haroldo. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a webinar organized by the Office of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. As you all know, the participants today are a reflection of a report that took place during last year. And we counted with the participation of the experts from different regions of the world, experts from cities, managers. We count with people from scientific world. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to the first participants, the authorities that are behind this webinar and the organization. So let me introduce you gladly, Mr. Jorge Chediek. He's the director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. He's also the envoy of the Secretary General for South-South Cooperation. And we also have Marco Regis da Silva. He is the executive director of the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. da Silva. And also we have Debbie Menezes. She's our senior research advisor from UNOSSC, and she's the author, the big author of the coordinator of the report, putting all together this expertise from all over the world. This is a report, so I'll just give the word to Mr. Jorge Chediek. Please go ahead.
Is this for the official opening, or this is
yes,
to say hi?
Yes, it's just to say hi.
Because it's 8:29, and I think we have to leave people there. So
you're completely
thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much for your participation. This is a very critical issue, and also is part of a series of webinars our office is putting together. So COVID, which is the urgent and very important, also doesn't let us forget the developmental and the civilizational challenges we keep facing. And climate change and the relationship with cities is one of those critical issues. So I really want to thank you for your participation. Also the participation you had in the preparation of the report we launched jointly last week with the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research. So really look forward to continue the work with you and other partners on how subnational entities are dealing with climate change and how they can share through South-South cooperation. Over.
Thank you so much. I will let you the opening remarks to Mr. Marco Regis da Silva, the Executive Director, Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to join George Chediek and you, Debbie, and colleagues in this webinar. I don't think we should underestimate the importance of today's discussions. It truly addresses the urgent issues which are posing absolutely immediate challenges to the health, livelihoods, and sustainability of cities and communities. The impacts of climate and other global changes in the cities are very, very complex and require transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary and collaborative approach to design of viable solutions. And solutions must be able to contribute to the development of public policies at the municipal, national, regional, and international levels. It must result from the integration of multiple disciplines and equitable participation from all stakeholders. That's why I'm so glad to see the speakers today from so many different regions of the world. But solutions are most effective when reached and based on the best available scientific information. And you can see the results when such information is disparaged or ignored in the development of public policies. Many regions of the world have ignored scientific information. Well, look what's happened with the COVID-19 and the results of the disparagement of such information. But COVID-19 is not the only urgent problem facing cities. Poverty alleviation, health, sanitation, rising sea levels, security, water, and other pandemics. If you look at my region, it's not just COVID-19, but it's a combination of influenza, dengue, yellow fever, and COVID-19, and Zika, which has never really gone away. And this is but a few. So a multinational, transdisciplinary, participatory approach is particularly needed in Latin America. And I stress this, 81% of the population in Latin America is urban, making it one of the most densely urbanized regions in the world. And it's not only the most urbanized, but one that's most marked by inequalities, particularly economic inequalities. Reflect for a moment the impact of COVID-19 on largely densely populated urban centers, especially of the poor, and non-urban centers on indigenous peoples. So I would say that the speakers today have a truly vast experience on the challenges facing cities in the global south. We are fortunate to have the opportunity to share their experiences and knowledge. The Directorate is particularly pleased with the results from this partnership with your office, George. I think we are working to build resilience and adaptability throughout the global south. This partnership is developing mechanisms to allow governments to more effectively deal with climate and other global changes. It'll also benefit from the expertise and on-the-ground knowledge available in the global south, and when appropriate, build on triangular south-south-north cooperation. I thank you very much for this invitation, and I welcome all the speakers, and I look forward to the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Regis da Silva. I'll give the floor to Mr. Jorge Chediek for his opening remarks. And thank you so much. He's the director for the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. Please, the floor is yours, Mr. Chediek.
Thank you very much to all the partners and all the panelists. This is a very critical issue. As it was said, although cities host globally a little more than half of the global population, they consume 2/3 of the energy and generate 70% of the greenhouse emissions. And although this year, because of COVID, international attention is caught by the effects of the pandemic, and also we're going to have a reduction in the global emissions because of the reductions of travel and other elements of economic activity, the trends are unmistakable. The growth of emissions, mostly generated in urban areas, is absolutely unsustainable, and we have to do something about it. As our Secretary General says, we have to make sure that we build back better and maybe take the opportunity of the challenge of COVID to change some of the trends that are going there. They're going in the wrong direction. The good news is there are some good practices, and that's precisely the purpose of the report we put together with IAI, and thank you, Marcos, for the partnership, that showcases that many countries and many cities are doing the right thing, and they are generating very valuable experiences that can be shared. As it was mentioned, last year we had a very big conference on South-South cooperation, a UN conference in Buenos Aires, one of the cities that is represented in this panel, also my city, that indicated that South-South cooperation could be undertaken not just by national governments, but also by subnational entities, specifically cities. So the idea is that we have to create more spaces in addition to the ones that already exist, for these experiences to be exchanged, and more than exchanged at the intellectual level, to be implemented, to help us bend the curve and also put the world on a more sustainable path with a more relevant development model that can really accommodate the social and economic progress with environmental sustainability. I'm confident that this event that also capitalizes on the experience of the report, and I take the opportunity to invite all of you to really access the report, access the video we produced to present a graphic representation of what's going on. And also, we really want to continue this dialogue and to continue these exchanges. We will put an institutional mechanisms at the disposal of these partners to make sure that we share from each other and we find ways to build a better world together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chediak, for the opening remarks. As well said, this report is a reflection of a long process between the conversation, this dialogue between scientists and city managers. And for our event today, for this webinar, we will have presentation of 5 cases that were in the report, and 3 cities from Latin America, and we have a special case from India, where there was exchange from 3 cities from India to Africa. And also we had a case from China, Shenzhen, that our panel will be touching later. So the collaboration between cities is very important for the climate action. So without further ado, I'll present to Debbie Meneses. She's a senior research advisor from UNOSSC, and she's the big author, coordinator of all these reports that we just presented last week, and we're talking further discussion here. So Debbie, if you could please give your remarks, please.
Thank you, Muriel. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Firstly, I would like to also begin by thanking all the authors for so generously sharing their knowledge. As this is meant to be a global report, it was really helpful to draw on the diversity of examples from across the world. Special thanks to Grace Wang, Deputy Director, Dr. Haroldo Machado Filho for their strategic guidance, and to colleagues from the UN Office of South-South Cooperation and the Inter-American Institute for their support through this process. At the outset of doing this report, we had 3 framing questions, and it's only fit that I share my thoughts with you on that. As we've already heard, the BAPA Plus 40 outcome document was a major impetus to this report, and it recognized the uniqueness of cities in delivering sustainable and inclusive urban governance as engines of growth, but also as important actors in taking action against climate change. So the first question really is contextual for the report and explores challenges of climate change for cities. We know that urbanization is growing at unprecedented rates. Cities are projected to house 2/3 of the global population by 2050. This poses a bit of a conundrum. With increasing urban economic activity comes increased greenhouse gas emissions, which is then strongly linked to rising global temperatures, thus making cities contributors to climate change. However, cities also suffer the consequences of these extreme weather events, which can cause economic and infrastructure damage, loss of lives and livelihoods. Our case studies explore how cities are coping by building resilience to extreme weather events such as floods, droughts, heat island effects, as well as by taking action for greener responses such as efficient transportation, energy and resource management. The second question in the report delves into some good practices and experience from inclusive urban management. And I'd like to offer you 3 reflections on that. Firstly, as we've heard already from several speakers in the introduction, the importance of data and scientific evidence is paramount in strengthening the links between climate change and urban policy. And they're also helping to bring transparency into decision making. And we've seen from our South American cases how policymakers and scientists are working together to turn ideas into action. Secondly, I think there's a growing recognition that climate change is multidimensional and that it requires political leadership and a coordinated effort across departments and agencies, as we're seeing in our Asian and African cases. We're also seeing how actively engaging citizenry is an important aspect of getting buy-in and in promoting behavioral changes, whether it's getting people to use more efficient transport, such as bikes or green buses, or by helping them to adopt more sustainable rooftop farming practices. And thirdly, I would emphasize the centrality of the Sustainable Development Goals. It is absolutely critical that urban climate action is undertaken in an inclusive manner so that we can achieve a sustainable future for all. And interestingly, when you look at all the cases, they span all 17 SDGs through the report. So that was quite an interesting find for us. And then the final set of questions in the report focuses on the role of South-South cooperation in facilitating wider developmental outcomes. And we looked at a scan of literature across the different models. And I'd like to just reflect on 3. So the first is that cities are actually already partnering with each other. And I think there's a great recognition that there's a seamless flow of knowledge and ideas that can take place across boundaries that are not constrained by national protectionism or restrictions on movement of people or goods or services, knowledge can flow across borders. And we're also seeing examples of some activities which include training, peer-to-peer exchange, learning by seeing how things are done elsewhere, technical expertise and financial support. But second model is looking at coalitions and convening platforms which are helping to give voice to cities in international forums. And again, we've got several examples of these. There's the Urban 20 initiative, which is promoting dialogue and cooperation amongst G20 nations and cities across development issues. We've also got city-led coalitions like the C40 network, ICLE local governments, and ASEAN Smart City networks. And a third model is where UN agencies and donor agencies are supporting South-South cooperation, mainly through programmatic interventions. And it would be remiss of me not to mention contributions to this report from UNFPA, FAO, GIZ, SCAP, UNDP, and UN Habitat. I'd just like to reflect in my last remarks on the post-COVID phase, where cities will continue to play an important role in the path towards global green recovery. And South-South cooperation can help to build solidarity and to find shared solutions to common developmental challenges instead of working to reinvent the wheel. We hope that you enjoy reading the report and that it stimulates discussions today, but also that it acts as a resource so that people can replicate these successful approaches elsewhere, and that it will further encourage and stimulate South-South cooperation efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for this introduction to the report. And I would like to really thank you for all the effort of coordinating all this co-authors. And it was a long process, but a very well done one. And well, right now, I would just go present Mr. Haroldo Machado Filho. As you know, he is the big thinker behind this initiative, this report, together with Yoni Anderson, who in the meeting at PAPA saw this group of thinkers, of people who were interested in doing this report. So, and he was acting manager for climate change in our office last year. And now he's in UNDP Brazil, but we're still counting with his support, and we are so glad to have him here. Haroldo asked me to please set the rules for the panel that's going to start now. We have wonderful thinkers, and in this webinar, we're very pleased and very honored to have you all here. As you know, we have selected 5 cities and 5 cases from our report to be reflected in this webinar. We have given 8 minutes to each case, which means that some cities will have 2 participants for 4 minutes each. So we really appreciate if we could attain to the time. We are starting at 8:45, with very good timing according to the program, and for respect, especially for our colleagues who are in Asia, and it's very late over there. So without further ado, Haroldo Machado Filho, I would like to give you the floor.
Oh, thank you, Muriel. Thank you also for clarifying the rules. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I work as Senior Advisor for UNDP Country Office in Brazil, and I will moderate this part of the webinar. Last year, I had the pleasure and the responsibility of acting as interim coordinator on climate change and sustainability at the UNOSSC. And then I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Chediak for his leadership in promoting South-South cooperation, and also for Ms. Chaojun Wang, the UNOSSC Deputy Director, for her confidence in my work. And lastly, I also had the chance to coordinate this report. It was a pleasure to work with Debbie and also all of the authors all around the world. It was a pleasure to work with Yoni and the AII staff. But it's worth highlighting that the report has been prepared in the context of the South-South Cooperation Action Plan for the Secretary General's Climate Change Engagement Strategy until 2021. I encourage all of you to read the full report, which is very inspiring. The beauty of this report is connecting scientists and decision makers, which has shown to be fundamental, especially nowadays in the light of COVID-19. I hope you enjoy reading the report as much as you enjoy coordinating it. and thank each and everybody of the authors and their host institutions who contribute individual cases in this publication. So we are very lucky that some of the authors that contribute to the report join us to this, in this webinar today. And given that we have very limited time, they are the ones that must be heard. And I will give the floor, I will invite the first speaker of this part of the webinar. And please, I would like to invite Mr. Umama Hishawaran Hajeskar, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name, sir, from the Institute of Urban Affairs in India for his presentation. You have 8 minutes, sir. Please proceed.
Hello, everyone. And before I start, I would like to thank UNOSSC for giving me this opportunity to present the cases from India. I would also like to thank Debbie, Sandra, and Geraldo for organizing this particular event, and very glad to take you through the tale of 3 cities from India. Just to give you a brief background, so I belong to National Institute of Urban Affairs, and I'm currently heading their Climate Center for Cities initiative, and also the chair for their Urban Resilience Unit. Both these units have been established within NIUA with a vision of looking at sustainability and resilience over long term, and not only looking at it from a financial point of view, but also making it as a part of ongoing developmental activities within cities. So the first city which I would like to talk about is Chennai. The photograph which you see over here is that of a temple lake, and the system of looking at water bodies as religious spaces go back down the centuries in India. So people have been looking at water as a very scarce resource, but at the same time, given the power and given the need, they also integrate it and worship it and revere it as a part of their day-to-day rituals. And these temple tanks, while they were very efficient mechanism for storing water, but with the city's growth and development, over 1,000 plus of such huge temple tanks have been, not maintained properly, or the water intake and the water quality within these temple tanks are not suitable for any sort of human activity. So given that particular nature, Chennai in 2015, they faced a huge flood. And while many of these tanks were using, they were using many of these tanks for water retention, the city also realized that many of the tanks were closed, or many of the places where construction activities have taken place, leading to a huge depletion. The city of 4.5 million population post 2015 started working on a resilience strategy. And all the 3 cities which I'll be presenting as part of today are part of a larger cohort within the 100 Resilient Cities Network, an initiative by Rockefeller Foundation. So the cities had the opportunity of sharing their ideas and also sharing knowledge, not only within the country, but they also managed to share it with both developing countries and also with other cities in the developed countries in the West. So one of the key challenges, as I indicated, was water, the floods, which happened in 2015. But last year, Chennai faced a huge drought crisis where people were not able to get drinking water. The situation was very similar to that of Cape Town. When they reached the level 0, even the city of Chennai pretty much reached level 0, where people were given a week's supply of drinking water, and that too with extra, difficulty for the municipal corporation to source it from far off places. So they're working with Addis Ababa, especially in Africa, and also Cape Town, gave city a dual purpose, that how do you maintain these water bodies and how do you take care of them, not only as a mechanism for water retention, but also look at it for, cases of drought where water can be used for, drinking water supply or either for other human activities. One of the key takeaways which came from the Addis Ababa meeting, and this was expressed by the Chief Resilience Officer of Chennai himself, is they never thought about informality before this, because most of these water bodies are, are in a boundary condition where they are maintained by the temple authorities. Using informality as one of the key areas for intervening within urban projects proved to be extremely beneficial. So over the last 2 years, post that interaction and post in development of strategies, now the city municipal corporation has taken up 300 water bodies across the city, which are not maintained by the temple. And they are now working with these water bodies to preserve and maintain and also conserve these open spaces. The second case study which I would like to take you through is that of Pune. This is also around the water challenge. While Pune has excess water, one of the key problems they face is the solid waste contamination within the water supply, and also the people's perception of water bodies. As you can see, the river is well maintained within the city, but a huge amount of discharge and unmanaged solid waste usually leads to flooding and water contamination, leading to diseases. The city of Pune, through the 100RC network, once again had a very detailed discussion with 2 cities in Asia, which is Singapore and Bangkok. Apart from that, they also had discussion with Accra and Jakarta to look in terms of how they can manage their solid waste. While there were certain interventions which were brought about for improving the water quality, the interventions with respect to solid waste also includes how do you dispose those waste, how do you process those waste, and how do you reuse those waste. And that is something which the city is currently coordinating and working with. One of the key takeaways from Singapore, which Pune did manage to do to their Mulamuta River, is when you keep people away from the river, the ownership and their passion to engage with the water bodies reduces. Therefore, they start throwing waste, especially from the flyover or especially in water bodies where they cannot see. So one of the key takeaways which led to some transformation is how do you engage citizen to play with the river? That is something Singapore is currently doing with their water barrage. And that is something which Pune is also starting to slowly not keep the river away from the citizens, but keep it close to the citizens and also make it part of their day-to-day ritual so that they can maintain it and work with the water body over the long term. The third city with case which I'm going to present is on Surat. The picture which you're seeing over here is that of the Tapi River. And this is the Tapi River during summers. So the city of Surat, with 4.5 million population, every year faces water scarcity during summer months when the river does not carry the rainwater. And during the monsoon, when there is a discharge from the close-by dam, the Tapi floods the city, leading to vector-borne and waterborne diseases. So similar to Pune, the city of Surat did have detailed discussion with Semarang, Indonesia, Da Nang, and also some cities in Latin America, which is Mexico and Medellin. Pretty much most of these cities have similar challenges. They face excess water during monsoon and very limited or water scarcity during drought-like condition. One of the key intervention which the city brought about is water retention ponds, and also how do they manage floods through advanced early warning system. So Surat was the first city in India to come up with end-to-end early warning system, and this is based on the cross knowledge. And I think post Surat, even Semarang managed to implement a community-based early warning system for hydromet disaster, especially riverine flooding. So the city of Surat right now has an early warning system which is fully functional. And during the recent monsoon, the city managed to release excess water based on the warning they received 72 hours in advance. And based on which, instead of releasing the water from the dam at one go, there was a controlled release from the dam which spanned across 48 hours, thereby leading to the city getting some additional time to evacuate people who are in the vulnerable areas, but at the same time also limit the extent of damage due to flooding. Similar to resilience and sustainability, I think the cooperation across the South Asian and African cities, I guess, and Latin American cities is not something which is a one-off intervention. Many of these cities and the city representatives do have communication and contact with each other, which they are also trying to enhance and learn from each other while implementing some of these projects. Because many a times when we talk about innovation, cities are very much afraid of implementing innovative solutions given the high degree and chance of failure. And that's where the South-South cooperation has played a key role. You know, learnings from one city, failures from one city can be taken up by another city, and instead of reinventing the wheel, they can look at transformative solutions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's very important to highlight how the importance of connecting different regions of the world to address possible impacts of climate change. And I believe that this cooperation between Cape Town, Addis Ababa, and the Indian cities is a good showcase of this. Thank you very much. I will ask now our next presenters. They are from Brazil. I kindly ask all of those who are okay to mute their mics. Okay, thank you. So I kindly invite Jussara Carvalho and Pedro Jacob from the government of the state of São Paulo in Brazil, and also from the University of São Paulo. Dr. Jacob is from the University of São Paulo, to present the Brazilian case. You have 8 minutes. Thank you. Both of you, sorry, my apologies. I need to be very strict with the time, and my apologies. Please, the floor is yours.
Professor Jacob.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I'm having some trouble here with my connection. I had it all prepared. I don't know what happened. Sorry. I don't know.
Professor, if you need some more time, I can invite our colleagues from Argentina.
Yeah, maybe I can start. No, maybe I can start. And
so
then
please proceed.
Pedro.
Yeah, please proceed, Jussara, please.
Okay, I'd like to share good morning for everyone. I'd like to thank for the invitation and to congratulate the organization of this report and this webinar. I want to share my screen. Let's see if I can get this. Yes, no, Pedro, you need to take off your screen. Okay. Well, as we have a few time and I don't know what happened here, I
can share it now if you want.
Huh?
I can share.
I am trying.
Jussara, do you prefer that I share?
Yes.
I can do it. Okay.
Here. Okay. Can you see?
Yes, yes, you need to put presentation mode. Yes.
Good.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd like to, in the name of Mr. Shediak and Mr. Marcus, I want to thank all the people of the organization of this webinar and the report. I am representing here the Infrastructure and Environment Secretariat of São Paulo State, and I would like to emphasize the role of the importance of the subnational governments in the implementation of 2030 Agenda and the Climate Change Paris Agreement. As you know, São Paulo is the most populous state in the country. We have around 44 million people with big economic numbers, as you know, and has one of the most challenging cities in the world. And here you can see many pictures of other cities and São Paulo too. Let me change. Okay. Here is São Paulo and the numbers, the big numbers. We have 645 municipalities, and this is very important to SS cooperation and triangular cooperation. Both the state and the city are distinguished by extreme diversity and offer examples of the best and the worst of urban conditions. As I said, the state has 645 municipalities, very diverse in economy, size, and complexity. A year ago, certainly we did not expect to face this terrible global pandemic crisis that we are facing now. And it became even worse because it happens in a time when two other structural crises affecting the relation between the contemporary societies in the Earth system that are mutually reinforcing: the climate change emergency and the ongoing annihilation of the biodiversity. The impact of the synergy of those crises will affect all the humanity, as Mr. Shediak has already told us, and affects mainly the South societies in the South cities, making them more vulnerable and more unequal. And to show even worse aspects in many countries, like in Brazil, we are facing one of the worst political crises that puts in check the implementation of the global commitments in the relation to climate change, biodiversity, and SDGs. What will the future bring with the climate risks even more frequent and intense? The pandemic crisis will be finished in the near future, we hope, with some vaccine, but climate change and biodiversity losses won't. In this context, I would like to draw your attention to the role of the partnership among subnational governments and the importance of the South-South and triangular cooperation. South-South cooperation was designed to promote the implementation of technical cooperation among developing countries, global South-South, to collaborate and share among themselves knowledge, abilities, and success initiatives in several areas of knowledge. It has been very successful in those 40 years since 1978 in Buenos Aires, as Mr. Shediak told us. Brazil has kept South-South cooperation with many countries of Global South since then. We know that cities, especially in Latin America, that concentrates more than 85% of the population in urban areas and are facing big challenges with this fast urbanization, and it is gonna be worse in the next decades when the population can grow twice. Those challenges are very similar in Global South. They are very connected with poverty eradication, basic infrastructure, services, housing, sanitation, education, health, among others. But for the other side, there are many examples of cities that are using innovative, collaborative, and evidence-based, scientific-based process to tackle the challenges and the risks of climate change. We need to share those experiences. In this sense, the South-South and triangular cooperation can help cities to get mutual success in sharing knowledge, success experience, appropriate technology, technical progress. As an output, we can have cities better prepared to face climate change impacts and skip steps to get sustainable solutions for its challenges. In this report, you can see in details the experience of São Paulo City about urban transport and waste management, very common problems in cities of South Global. Thank you very much, and I call Pedro to continue. I was running because we don't have time. We need to act now.
Arnato, you're muted.
Well, good morning, good afternoon for everybody. I'm sharing this presentation together with Jusara because it was a paper that we wrote together between university and public agents. No? So basically, we want to talk about the challenges of contemporary society. Several of these issues were already presented. Now, I believe that these have to be really more and more considered, and definitely today with the COVID pandemics, many of these issues become even stronger in our cities. What are we looking at? No? As we see, we have to seek a way out of the economic crisis through the green economy, encouraging a sustainable, equitable, and people-centered development. Several cities have made a commitment to seek a recovery that aligns incentives for the reheating of their economies with mitigation and adaptation to climate change. We also have to look more and more to the importance of networking. And in Latin America, we have been really dealing within these initiatives. And as president of the board of ICLE South America, I have been also very involved besides my academic activities in terms of these articulations that are absolutely essential. The networking that allows the construction and implementation of intersectorial actions through the sharing of experiences. São Paulo, as Jusara already mentioned, has brought several solutions for urban transportation and waste management. And definitely the municipal administration has been taking several steps to reduce congestion and emissions in the transport sector, introducing bus-only corridors, increased enforcement and reduction in speed limits, and also the waste management initiatives include composting and electricity plants that burn biogas generated in landfills. Initial results have been indicating the possibility for São Paulo to share its experiences with other megacities globally. So besides that, I want to stress the importance of these articulations. Say, how do we deal in terms of cooperation? Cooperations in terms of renewable energy platforms, cooperations in terms of bringing up innovation, in terms of logistics, in terms of mobility, and in terms of urban low-income development strategies. So several of these initiatives are essential when we talk about the global articulations and the South-South, as other presentations have already showed, and the importance of governments' commitments to renewable energy transition, the commitments to reduce the impacts of climate change in extreme events, and the commitments to also engage in initiatives that implement stronger biodiversity initiatives that give, for example, solutions based on nature and other the promotion of other activities that really bring up a new approach to deal in cities, basically in terms of a social learning process, cooperation, and the interaction of the different practices, as we can see in this presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Jacob. Thank you very much for highlighting challenges to the megalopolis as huge cities as São Paulo and cities with fast urbanization. Also for highlighting the importance of networking as I play. Now we move to Chile, and I will invite Cristina Huidobro from the Metropolitan Regional Government of Santiago to present the case. Thank you, Cristina.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Let me share my screen. So can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, let me put it in. Okay. So thank you for having us. And let me briefly to provide some insight of Santiago and its challenge and initiative to address this pressing issue as climate change it is. First of all, for all of you that are not familiarized with Santiago, I'll give you a brief context. I'm here representing the resilient unit of the Metropolitan Region Government of Santiago. We're in charge of the administration of the entire metropolitan region, within which is the city of Santiago, as you can see in this map. The region has 7 million people, of which 97% of them live in urban areas. It concentrates 41% of the Chilean population and also the economic and political power. So one challenge that we have is the political administration in Chile is highly centralized and divided at subnational level into regions, provinces, and municipalities. So the region has 52 municipalities, therefore 52 elected mayors, but the main regional authority is the governor or intendente, who is appointed by the president. This will change next year when we have the first regional governor election, which involves a gradual transfer of responsibilities and functions from the national to the regional level, including the creation of metropolitan areas with improved policy instruments for governance and planning. So why this is important? Because the current governance lacks an integrated public institutional structure, which impacts on the coordination of public policy to govern the metropolitan area of Santiago as a whole, including sensitive areas such as transportation and land use. Some other challenges that we're facing really quick. First of all, as many of you already mentioned before, Santiago has high rates of urbanization and GDP growth, but also suffer from pervasive high levels of inequality. It's one of the most unequal countries in the region, a region that is already characterized by inequity. Another, very briefly, it's climate change. Climate change is having a significant impact in Chile, including through warming with clear signs of drying over central and southern Chile. This has now turned into a decade-long mega drought that has been further amplified by inadequate water governance. We have a huge deficit of rainfall up to date. So it's a very pressing issue. Another one is air quality. Despite the substantial improvement over the last 3 decades, air quality remains a pressing problem since it has a strong relation with urban mobility. This is a concern because of the decrease in public transport use in Santiago since it fell almost a half in the last 40 years, with a corresponding increase in private car use. We fear this could get even worse once people in the city resume the mobility after the COVID-19 crisis, as we could see in other countries. So, since we're later talking about the post-pandemic cities. So let's move to a more positive part of the presentation, and let me highlight some of the initiatives that we have in place. Chile has multiple actions and policy instruments in place to address climate change, some of which are specific to the Santiago metropolitan area. For example, some policies oriented towards a clean energy matrix. One of the main that I would like to highlight today is the conversion and expansion of the public transportation system to electromobility. We have the biggest public electric transportation system in Latin America. And this is aligned with the goal of having 100% electric public transportation system by 2040. Also this year, Santiago will have the first network of 104 electric car rechange points, or as we call it, electrolineras, in public spaces, 2 in each of the 52 municipalities of the city, as a result of a private-public partnership between the regional government and a major gas station company. So the project aims to provide access to electromobility throughout the region to all citizens. Also, the metropolitan government has funded almost $1 million to acquire electric vehicles for local municipalities, thereby pushing a policy that prioritizes electromobility in public spending. There's also a new green subsidy for taxis that encourages the conversion for the fleet to electromobility. Also, in terms of solar energy, we have been promoting the use of small-scale renewable energy in social housing and agriculture, both urban and rural. More importantly, these policies provide a long-term framework to achieve sustainable urban development. The increasingly ambitious goals from Chile, Chile's national determined contribution to the Paris Agreement. So, here another cities also are part of the Resilient Cities Network. So let me tell you that we released our resilience strategy in 2017 with the support of the Rockefeller Foundation. It includes climate change as a key element, which is also acknowledged in 4 of its 6 pillars: in mobility, environment, disaster risk management, and social equity. Currently, we are in an updating process that enhances and recognizes the climate change across all pillars and initiatives, acknowledging the cross-cutting nature of it and its ensuing consequences. Finally, we are in coordination with other teams, both from our regional government and other agencies, in order to promote cross-sectoral coordination and consider the interinstitutional and international dimension when addressing climate change. Let me briefly talk about this project that is, at least for me, is very important. I've been personally working a lot on this. The Water Fund. This is one of the priority initiatives of the resilience strategy in the Santiago in this resilience strategy. It's called the Santiago Maipo Water Fund. It's a public, private, and civil society initiative that resulted in the creation of a non-profit corporation with the aim of contributing to the region's water security. Last topic that I want to share with you is, well, city-to-city partnership and South-South and triangular cooperation. So let me tell you a little bit about the Chile-Mexico Fund. That is an example of partnership between two countries, to contribute reciprocally to their sustainable development. This fund, we have at least, I only mentioned a couple of them, of the work we have done together, one in water, another in disaster risk reduction and resilient communities, with major focus on climate change. On the other hand, Santiago is part of the, well, I said that before, Resilient Cities Network, and also C40, which are an important channel for South-South and international cooperation. Although we have several initiatives underway, we believe that it's necessary to reinforce South-South cooperation and to generate coherence between the different levels of governance, with special emphasis incorporating climate change at the local level, both regional and municipal, with a bottom-up approach that allows generating solutions that contribute to adaptation and mitigations. So I would like to finish my presentation, acknowledging the work of my colleagues that made this report possible, Michelle Carles and Laura Gallardo and her team from the CR2. This also, as Sao Paulo, was like a partnership with academia and the city and the regional government. And I leave you with this picture of the El Yeso Reservoir in the metropolitan region, showing the effects of the climate change, such as the medical drought, that remind us this is a pressing problem that needs to be addressed with urgency. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Valeria. I would like to thank you especially for pointing out the impact of inequality in urban management, and also for highlighting the importance of private-public partnership to put together mitigation actions and also resilient strategies. Thank you. And now we move towards west, and we land in China, in Shenzhen. And I kindly ask Professor Zhang and Professor Wang to present the Chinese case. Professor Wang, you have the floor. Or Professor Zhang, I don't know who's going to start. Your mic is mute.
Professor Wang is show the PPT.
Professor Wang, your mic is on mute. We are all getting familiar with these platforms. It takes some time.
Dear friends, very glad to meet you.
Yes, now we can see your slides. Yes.
Dear friends, very glad to meet you on the website, but I think maybe we can reduce CO2 emission. That's right. I'm not sure any of you already visited Shenzhen. Shenzhen is the youngest megacity in China. It's established in 1979 and then turned to be a special economic zone in 1980. By the end of last year, population is more than 13 million. But can you imagine how many people in this city 40 years ago? There's only less 300,000 people 40 years ago. Oh, you can see this picture, oh, rural area, but now more than 13 million people and a modern city. The whole GDP is about 2.6 trillion renminbi, around 380 billion US dollar. And per capita GDP is about 29,000 US dollar. Is around 2,000 square kilometers. Now we are focused on addressing climate change, actively promote green and low carbon development, control greenhouse gas emission. Next, I will introduce you about Shenzhen industrial structure, about green industries, about green traffic, greenhouse, etc. Next, Shenzhen deepened the low carbon transformation of the secondary industry. Now it's about 37% of GDP. And the third, about the service industry, is about 60% in 2019. We have total of 236 research and development platform for clean energy technology. Now Shenzhen already operating mileage exceed 300 kilometers, one of the top 10 in the world. All the buses, public buses and taxis now are EV, and more than 362,000 new energy vehicles, about 10% of all old vehicles, ranking the top in China. About green building, now about newly building must be 100% green building. Up to now, total new green building area of city has reached 115 million square meters. Shenzhen also have the first, in 2013, launched the carbon emission trading. At present, there are around 800 carbon trading control units, cover 31 industry sectors. The calculative trading volume of Shenzhen carbon market altogether about 57 million tons. Compared with 2011, in 2018, the city total emission decreased by 2.7 million tons. Here in China, we almost have 1,000 parks, and almost them are free. The forest coverage rate is about 40%, and green coverage rate is about 45%. And we also received the award of title National Forest City in 2018. In Shenzhen actively holds low carbon events such as Land Day, Earth Day, Water Resource Day, Energy Day, etc. Shenzhen Youth Environmental Protection Festival is one of the brand advocacy initiatives of Shenzhen for environmental protection. Low carbon life start with me. We also have other actions. We have fruitful achievements of international cooperation, which received the C40, especially on green traffic, received the C40 award. We also collaborate with many countries, also with the World Bank and WWF, etc. We also have this SSC, South-South Cooperation, since 2012, with stakeholders from Asian countries, like facilitating participation in exhibitions, promoting discussion and exchanges, knowledge sharing and capacity building, technical assistance on eco-environmental protection. Especially, I think at least more than 200, because I have many times lectures with them. Participants from developing countries have benefit from training courses in Shenzhen International Carbon City Forum. After a while, I will introduce this the project and this forum. Now this is Shenzhen International Carbon City. I want to, if you can remember it, I call it Silk, pronounced like S-I-L-K, Silk, S-I-L-C-C. Is supported by not only Shenzhen DRC, but also our national NDRC. Is one of the pilot project of NDRC, and is also a flagship project of China Euro-Union urbanization partnership. It's about 53 square kilometers, launched in 2012. So many South-South Sea activities in this Shenzhen International Carbon City. We collaborate with many like R20C40, like this international collaboration. We already have 7 Shenzhen International Carbon City Forum. I think you can recognize this as Mr. Gore, the former Vice President of US. And this is also from USA. Stephen Zhu, a very famous scientist and a minister, former minister of the United States. This is former Vice Prime Minister from Holland. Now this picture, very important, is now from the SSC action. Many friends from different countries. By the way, this year, we will have the 8th Shenzhen International Carbon City Forum planned in November this year. But I'm not sure if you can come here to Shenzhen, but warm welcome. Otherwise, maybe we can also communication on the website. Now, Shenzhen Blue and Shenzhen Green have become the city's new name card. So, warm welcome you come to Shenzhen. Looking forward seeing you in Shenzhen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. We also hope to see you in Shenzhen very soon. Thank you very much for these impressive figures from China. We all know that China has a lot to share with other southern countries regarding low carbon development, industrial transformation, also green buildings. Thank you very much. And now I believe that we could move back to South America and to Argentina. I can see Patricia Hinshaw is there. And Patricia, please, I kindly ask you to present your case.
Well, hello to all. We will be presenting, starting, thanks for inviting us to participate in this webinar that is very, very interesting for us. And we will be doing this presentation with Valeria Massi. She will be showing you these things. Well, the first thing that I would like to tell you is that Buenos Aires City is the picture. I don't know if all of you know this city, is very nice. It is the capital of Argentina and is the large and most populous city in the country. It's a city and it's an state. For this is very interesting the different approaches that we can have in our place. We live here, 3 million people. All the days arrive to the city, 3 million more for the metropolitan area. Next one, please. Buenos Aires City was the first state in the country to enact a climate change law. That was in 2011, and it's interesting because this law implements mechanisms for climate governance and established the creation of 2 bodies in order to help the government, the policy government. The first is the interministerial team that is a team that works with all the areas in the government that participate in climate change or has some action related with that, and help to articulate the management of public policies associated with climate change. The other important body is the External Advisory Council that is composed of organizations, academic, and scientists with recognized experience. This was the first approach for the government in order to interchange knowledge from between academy and government. The law has two more important issues. The first one is that we need to do the GIG inventory all the years. And the last one is that we need to do some action plan from 5 years. And in this moment, we are working in our new action plan in order to be a carbon neutral, resilient, and inclusive city by 2050. We are doing that with the C40 help, you know. Next one, please. Well, from the government, we understand the importance of urban green infrastructure in mitigating and adapting to climate change. For this reason, in the last time, we were implementing two work tables, very important, in order to work and integrate the action being carried out in this area. The first one is some work table in green infrastructure. We are more or less 10 areas, different areas that work together, thinking in that. And the other is the sustainable urban drainage system work table. And in the last year, in this year, was created a new area that is the Undersecretary from Green Infrastructure Policy and Sustainable Development, especially because of the when we decide to create the green infrastructure work table, government understands the necessity to have a new area like this one. Next one, please. Well, for this project, we decided to work with Rio Gomez, that is our scientist, Argentinian scientist that worked with us in this publication and in this project. And we understand that the impact of increase of heat waves and urban heat island in Buenos Aires city could be interesting to work in order to provide scientific information for future urban green infrastructure policy. And for that, we understand that the climate change and growing urbanization are making the city of Buenos Aires more vulnerable to heat waves and urban heat island effects. Cava experienced more or less 50 heat waves from 24 to 2030, with at least one heat wave per year. That is a lot. The first thing that we get in our work together with the academy was that the scientific studies undertaken separately by both climatologists and urban planners show the existence of urban heat island in Cava. But they have different approaches. And we understand that for us, it's very important to try to work in the future in an integrated way, trying to get the vision for the climatologist and the planner, urban planner together. Because the climatologist only study the climate phenomena, but the urban planner include the vision of the difference in the infrastructure in the city and how it improve or increase the urban heat island effect. We get that we need a thermal emission inventory that is very important for us and we don't have. We understand that we need to integrate the thermal condition experienced by people. That is very important too, and any of the scientific papers that we were looking understand that or taking care of that. And we understand that we need to try to work in order to understand very well the benefit of green infrastructure in Buenos Aires city. Okay, next one. It's yours. Sorry. Valeria will be continue with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Well, in the last years, we were working in different projects about urban microclimates and the role of trees in the cities. With this purpose, we measure air and surface temperature, like pavements, under the presence and the absence of tree canopy. And we measure surfaces like pavements in the downtown area of our city. We found that there were differences of more than 10 Celsius degrees under the absence of trees. Then we replicate this experience in a formal settlement called Barrio 20. First, we mapped the green infrastructure, and then we measure the same air and surface temperatures. We wanted to study the temperatures experienced by people in daily life, both in relation to vegetation and to the different environments in this settlement. We mean the corridors and the different environments, exposed areas, and all. APRA has received a grant from C40 program called Empowering Cities with Data. The aim of this program is to develop a platform that integrates the existing information on green infrastructure and to estimate also carbon sequestration by trees. This platform will be for internal government use, but we have also a module for people because we want to provide information on these key ecosystem services, carbon sequestration, thermal regulation, and stormwater runoff mitigation provided by green infrastructure. Since 2017, APRA carries out this program of adaptation to extreme weather events. And the aim of this program is to raise public awareness on climate change and the importance of being prepared to extreme weather events such as heat waves. And with this purpose, different workshops I carried out to explain climate change and different types of heat wave alerts and different symptoms of heat stroke, among other issues. And these actions are accompanied by annual mass communication campaigns through calls, text messages, and emails during the months of summer. As next steps and lessons learned from this pandemic, we can say that nature-based solutions are increasingly being considered as key strategies to face climate change. And in this way, in this sense, the sustainable urban drainage systems are an example of this. Also, the superblock strategies and the green climate corridor strategies are being considered to generate more accessibility and availability of public space and green spaces in this new framework of new spatiality after this pandemic. And these aspects are being considered too in a return to public space plan, which is being elaborated at this moment. And also, by coming to an end, we believe we have to strengthen cooperation with academia and between cities. And in this sense, we know that the universities are already working in these two topics, the sustainable urban drainage systems and green infrastructure. So it will be a huge opportunity to work with them. And also we believe that we have to continue sharing experiences with other cities. In this sense, the South-South cooperation will be very important for this. And we think that we have to continue increasing efforts to implement adaptation and inclusion strategies, and that the vulnerable groups have to be the priority when thinking about strategies to the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valeria, especially for your conclusion, because I think that it wraps up very well the panel, which is the message that sharing experience with other cities and countries is fundamental, especially through South-South cooperation. And I like this case of Buenos Aires very much because it puts together all the stakeholders, academia, private sector, also local and national governments, and also NGOs. And I believe that Buenos Aires will be always remembered for its contribution to South-South cooperation, not only for hosting the BAPA and BAPA Plus 40, but also for being the hometown of Mr. George Chediak. Thank you very much. So I think that now we could move to the questions. I know that we are running out of time, and we don't have a lot of time, and still need to give the floor back to you. But I will try to put together some questions and give the floor for each of you for 2 minutes intervention, please. So for Christina, what are the main challenges to reduce emissions in Santiago? And also to Buenos Aires, there's a question on urban wetlands combined with sustainable urban drainage systems. Did you also measure this and include urban wetlands in your planning and strategies? But as a general questions to all the panelists, I kindly ask you to address a question related to how we can promote even further South-South and triangular cooperation to facilitate wider development outcomes. So please, the others, if you could address these more general questions. So I will ask perhaps Santiago to start.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
So yeah, the challenges to addressing the, you said the air pollution,
to reduce emissions, yes, the challenge to reduce emissions in Santiago.
I think first of all, we have an historic issue, is allocation thing. We are in the middle of a valley, so we have hard ventilation conditions. That's first of all. Second, of course, always transportation, the cars, the buses also are an issue. And but what I think is the real challenge here is not that. It's we still have a lot of poverty. We still have a lot of people that use wood for heating. So we have we need to start changing and moving to electrical and gas, more sustainable green type of heating for the, I'm talking here about in housing, in families. So especially right now, we are in winter, even though most of people are in their homes, so we have decreased the mobility in the city, we still having a lot of issues with air quality because of that, because people use, and not only in Santiago, in most every single city in the country, they use wood for heating. So so I think that's, and we need to move forward to change the fixed source of contamination and emissions.
Thank you very much, Christina, and also for reminding us that inequality is always the biggest challenge. Can we move back to Buenos Aires? I believe, Patricia, can you answer this on the urban wetlands?
Yeah, well, we are thinking, we are working in our new climate change plan, like I told you. And in this plan, we are trying to incorporate all the related with blue infrastructure. Our plan will be based in the green and blue infrastructure. We don't have wetlands or very important wetlands in Buenos Aires. We have a big river, Rio de la Plata, but we have some wetlands that we are beginning to think in the way that we can use in order to build some solution based in nature, especially because city has a lot of hydraulic infrastructure in order to avoid floods. But we are not thinking in continue working with this kind of infrastructures measures. And we are trying to migrate to some green and blue measures in order to adapt to climate change. And this is something that we are working right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Patricia. And now I move to São Paulo, and I would like to ask Jussara and Pedro, does São Paulo intend to keep this good collaboration between scientists and decision makers? Professor, your mic is on mute. 1 minute each, if you kindly.
Well, as to the University of São Paulo and also the Institute of Advanced Studies, we have been always open to this dialogue, and with the state of São Paulo, definitely it has been very relevant. As to the national government, it's always a question mark, no? But the scientists have been very, very collaborative in terms now for COVID, for example, it has been absolutely relevant. And in terms of the discussion of urban issues, at the Institute of Advanced Studies, several groups in the program of global cities have been developing several initiatives that show the importance of the dialogue between science and public policy. So this is
fantastic,
essential, absolutely essential.
Fantastic.
The metrics have to be shown and to be explained.
Yeah, importance of evidence-based approach. Thank you very much, Professor. Jussara, I would like to add something. 1 minute, please.
Yes. We are finishing a project. The name is Synthesis Laboratory, with a group of researchers from several universities and the political government. So with this project, we are going to have more policies, more public policies based on research. They are not doing research in the field, but they will put together all the things that are about an issue related to climate change, and then it becomes easier and faster to have public policies, or to new ones or not, to deal with this issue. It is very, very new, and I will share with you because it will be very important.
Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more from this. Thank you. And now I'm afraid that our colleague from India left us. He had another appointment, and but I moved to China now, and we are all interested to know more about the plans of Shenzhen to keep this very good work in sharing these good cases to other cities around the world. Who'd like to answer? Mr. Zhang, one? Yes, please proceed.
Thank you for your questions. I think now we are preparing another 2 pilot research and project. First one is maybe this year or next year we'll get the peak of carbon emission, but we want not only we get 3 goals. First one is still addressing climate change, get the peak of emission. The second one is about the air quality. We want to get very high quality according to the WHO. And in the meanwhile, we want get a high quality increase. So it's not easy. We want integrated the 3 goals. This is first research work. Another one, now we are preparing do some research work on adaptation climate change to support the government make decision making. Maybe we can have more infrastructure to deal with this climate change. So we try to do this to keep. Another subject we want to have how to integrate the policies and the technologies. We want to have maybe have two packages, but integrated them together. Maybe we can share. If any of you have very good technologies can help us reduce the carbon emission, warm welcome to China. And if you have any experience about how to make policies according this, maybe these technologies, also warm welcome. We would also like to share this with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wang. Certainly, technology is crucial for South-South cooperation in the 21st century. Well, thank you for all the panelists. I think it's too short. It's a pity that we are running out of time, but I just like to emphasize that this report is intended as a knowledge resource to facilitate South-South cooperation, so that successes cases could be adapted, replicated, and of course scaled up by other cities. And this report and also this webinar, by offering these concrete examples of city-to-city partnership and South-South cooperation initiatives, it seeks to inspire further action this year. So this wonderful initiative cannot stop here. We strongly encourage all of you to keep exchanging information and working together. And now I would like to invite the UNOSSC Deputy Director, Ms. Wang, Ms. Changchun Wang, or as most of us know as Grace, to convey her conclusion remarks, which are always very, very inspiring. Grace, please.
Thank you very much, Arado. And thank you for IAI for being our strategic partner. Thank you for all the panelists and participants. It was because of you I have learned a lot, and I know that knowledge wouldn't stop here. It will be shared to benefit more people. Let me quote again what the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said at the C40 Mayors Summit held last year in October, that cities are where the climate battle will largely be won or lost. So today, many case studies you have shared with us today tells us how to win this battle together. First, I would like to share with you what I have learned from you, what kind of solutions we have, and that should be scaled up. I heard from you that all solutions should put SDGs at the center, with the goal of leaving no one behind, require a multi-sector, multidisciplinary approach. And then I also heard from you at policy level, good policies and programs should be both ambitious and measurable with clear goals and targets. We heard examples just now from cities in China, for example, on the targets set. All these policies and programs, of course, need to be based on good data, scientific evidence, and supported by infrastructure and technologies. So it's very important to engage academic community with government. And lastly, I also heard from you, such solutions should be people-centered. This is not only at macro planning level, it's not only at the design of program and projects to bring access and affordability close to the community, close to the people in need. But very importantly, several of you mentioned changing behaviors of people. And not only using formal regulations and rules, but also leveraging informality with the purpose of really changing individuals and communities' perceptions and behaviors towards nature. Now, as an office promoting South-South and triangular cooperation, I would like to express heartfelt thanks to you all for highlighting South-South cooperation and what roles it can play. I heard from you at least 3 important highlights. First, knowledge sharing, technical exchange, financial support are important tools for South-South cooperation. No matter how far physically apart the cities are, the similarity of issues and the relevance of solutions born in the cities, if shared, such knowledge can close the gap of physical distance. And knowledge is a bridge in this sense. I also heard from you, beyond those tools, we look forward to more and more convening platforms that bring cities together. You have given examples of sub-regional mechanisms, regional mechanisms, but also global network of cities. Remember in the years when we implement MDGs, we at the beginning thought it's global agenda, and then we use a few years to bring it to the local level. We see localizing MDGs, and then a few years to really implement that on the ground. Now SDGs is born in the era that we could make that process much more horizontal. And we see so many networks of subnational entities, of cities, municipalities, and even civil society organizations or community-based organizations working together on the global scene. And that is what the era gives us as a gift, and we should leverage that. And I also heard from individual cities take initiative to proactively organize forums and a forum to engage with other cities across the world. Lastly, I heard from you many examples of UN-facilitated partnerships and programs, engaging public and private sector partners. So these are very important ways of making South-South cooperation more effective. Now, at the end, actually, the whole discussion today reminds me of the old philosophy of Taoism, the principle of oneness. We have been talking about human and nature is in oneness. And cities are in oneness of the global urban community. Urban and rural development is integrated in oneness in order to achieve our common goals of SDGs, leaving no one behind. So that made me feel even more proud to be in the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, where we can offer some services to you to champion the issue of city-to-city cooperation through several means. First of all, the dialogue shouldn't stop here. On the UN Office for South-South Cooperation website, we host the discussion panel for the subject to continue. Please share your views and comments further on the website. Secondly, we have built a Global South research community called South-South Global Thinkers. You can identify follow-up research proposals and seek collaboration with over 250 institutions, research institutions, and academia across Global South to do joint research, and we're happy to support some of them going forward. We have knowledge sharing and partnership brokering platform called South-South Galaxy. There, it can help you to translate your demands and ideas to concrete partnerships. And then the program approach that we are using, we have a team working on maritime continental Silk Road South-South and triangular cooperation among cities project. There, you can bring your partnership to actual actions. I believe South-South cooperation is the bridge to build this oneness. Your knowledge shared today, your partnership with us going forward, and the humble, quiet, but diligent effort of UNOSSC colleagues behind the scene to bring you together today will all be the building blocks of this bridge. I thank you very much.
I think we reached the end of this webinar. Given that Mr. Shediak and Mr. Regis da Silva stayed with us until now, if you would like to say a final word, Mr. Shediak or Mr. Regis da Silva? Okay, so I would like to thank you very much for this webinar. I think it was very productive, at least I learned a lot. And I would like to thank the UNOSSC for leading this very important initiative. Thank you very much. See you, bye-bye.
Thank you, attendees. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you, Grace. Tchau, Jussara. Obrigada.
Tchau, tchau, obrigada. Bye, bye.
Tchau.